In a galaxy on the brink of collapse, a dignitary's life is endangered during a fierce pirate ambush. When two strangers find themselves united against a common threat, their unexpected alliance reveals profound truths about courage and sacrifice. As they navigate a landscape of danger, they must confront the ethical dilemmas that arise from their divergent worlds. What is the true cost of unity? Don't forget to subscribe. 91% of viewers enjoy our content but forget to hit that subscribe button. By subscribing, you'll stay up to date with our daily sci-fi stories and support a dedicated team of storytellers and content creators who rely on this as their livelihood. In the deafening silence of space, a cosmos filled with luminescent stars, the usually serene framework of the Celestian cluster trembled. This ethereal beauty now echoed with the unsettling blares of alarms reverberating through the Boran flagship, a colossal vessel renowned for its intricate designs and majestic presence. It was here, in the heart of this star-spangled marvel, that Sira, the Boran dignitary, stood resolutely within the command center. With deep ebony hair cascading down her refined shoulders and piercing emerald eyes, reflecting a fierce determination, she was the epitome of nobility. Yet, as she gripped the edge of the command console, her heart raced violently against her ribcage, mirroring the chaos erupting around her as rogue pirate ships bombarded their ranks. "Captain, we must evacuate immediately," one of the officers exclaimed, his voice trembling amidst the staccato sounds of blaster fire echoing through the ship. He was a young man, tousled blonde hair and wide blue eyes betraying a mixture of fear and urgency. "I won't leave my people," Sierra shot back defiantly, her voice strong yet betraying an underlying quaver. Her thoughts were ensnared in those of the crewmen, each one a thread of a wider tapestry she had vowed to protect. Just as the tension reached a fever pitch, the bulkhead doors exploded inward. Shadows surged in as Captain Zorn, a notorious figure draped in shadowy garb, strode forward with lethal menace. His presence radiated an aura of danger, with rugged features etched by many battles. Zorn's cold gray eyes assessed the situation, a predatory glint within, a harbinger of his twisted ambitions. Outside, amidst the swirling chaos, a lone soldier known as Scott Reynolds manned a nearby cruiser. With short-cropped dark hair and a rugged and weathered exterior, Scott was the embodiment of a soldier forged in the fires of battle. Duty and valor surged through his veins as he received Sierra's frantic transmission echoing through the comlink. The words painted a vivid picture of despair, igniting a fire in him. "I won't let them die," he roared, his voice echoing through the cockpit as he tightened his grip on the controls. Recklessly, he pushed the ship forward, darting through the chaos where blaster fire rained like furious stars raining down from the heavens, leaving trails of fiery destruction. It was madness. Yet in that turbulent moment, it felt like the only course left, the flickering flame of heroism surging inside him. As he weaved through enemy lines, the Boran flagship's silhouette loomed ahead in despairing detail, flares of heat rising from gaping wounds in its once majestic hull. Scott's heart pounded, fueled by instinct, a primal urge to protect. He could see Sierra's desperate visage mirrored in the viewscreen, and that connection laced his courage with desperation. Bank. Just as Scott plunged headfirst into the fray, Sierra's commanding voice pierced through the chaos. "Reroute power to the forward shields. We need to buy some time." Her reverberating resolve not only galvanized her crew, but also echoed across the void to Scott, urging him onward. "You heard her!" he bellowed to his crew, adrenaline surging. The roar of the engines and the shaking of metal against metal felt like an orchestra of chaos to Scott Reynolds as he maneuvered his ship through the debris of a space battle that had become a graveyard of starships. The flickering lights of warning alarms filled his cabin, casting a shade of urgency across his determined face. He had just rescued Sierra from the clutches of the merciless Captain Zorn, but their escape was far from secure. As the sleek rescue capsule broke free from the wreckage, Scott felt a surge of hope amid the panic. But hope can only sustain a person for so long in the face of uncertainty. He watched Cinera as she slumped against the wall of the capsule, her eyes glazed, an injured tiger momentarily freed from its cage, yet unaware of the lurking predators on the ground below. The atmosphere outside the capsule changed abruptly, a turbulent storm swirling with electric violet hues. bolt-like tendrils of energy danced in the clouds, occasionally illuminating the shadows of the planet they were hurtling toward. Syrah's breath quickened, and she winced, pressing her palm against the gash on her arm, a reminder of how perilous their situation truly was. "Hold on," Scott shouted over the rattling din as the capsule trembled violently against the turbulent winds sweeping the rogue planet's surface like a chaotic whirlwind. "Scott, we might," Syrah started, but her voice was drowned out by the shrill wail of alarms. The capsule shuddered violently before crashing into lush foliage, the shock reverberating through Scott's body as they hit the ground with tremendous force. In the aftermath of the crash, Scott's instincts kicked in like a well-oiled machine. He disentangled himself from the harness, urgency overtaking him. He rushed to Syrah, who was trying to regain her composure, blinking against the murky, ambient light filtering through the trees that towered all around them. "Are you okay?" he asked, scanning her for further injuries. "I will be," she whispered, her regal poise slipping just enough to show a hint of vulnerability. She forced a smile through the pain, her deep emerald eyes locking onto his, a connection forged not merely from fear but from an unspoken understanding of survival. "We need to move," Scott urged, helping her to her feet. The surroundings were dense with enormous flora, each leaf gleaming with an otherworldly iridescence, as if the very universe was breathing life into this alien terrain. Scott grabbed Syrah's arm gently but firmly, guiding her through the heavy underbrush as they traversed their new environment. The air was thick with moisture and the scent of unfamiliar flora that enveloped them, stinging their nostrils with a potent mixture that felt alien and intoxicating all at once. Massive trees arched overhead, lending a surreal quality to the landscape as they meandered deeper into the wilderness. It felt alive, pulsing with its own heartbeat, almost aware of their presence as it whispered through the rustling leaves. "We should find shelter," Scott concluded as they reached a clearing, a momentary respite from the chaos. He took a deep breath, trying to shake off the adrenaline coursing through him. Though his heart raced, he forced himself to be calm, for Syrah's sake. As Syrah leaned against a tree for support, she winced again, the strain of their escape evident in her posture. "We don't know what this place holds," she mused, glancing around, her voice laced with both fear and curiosity. Scott nodded, scanning the treetops where strange creatures flitted and chirped, their shapes mere shadows against a vibrant sky. "Yeah, but we can't stay exposed like this. If Zorn's men track us down," Syrah grimaced, but then touched his arm, her fingers gently rubbing against his skin, an inadvertent gesture of connection that surprised them both. "Thank you for coming for me, for not leaving me a prisoner," she said, her voice softening. "It's not something I'm accustomed to." Scott met her gaze, surprised by the sincerity in her tone. "It's what anyone would do," he said, attempting to downplay his actions, yet again, feeling the weight of her gratitude in his chest. He was no hero, but the resolve in Syrah's eyes ignited something within him, a fierce desire to protect her at all costs. "Anyone?" she asked, a spark of defiance illuminating her pain. "You don't know what it's like to be a dignitary. Your people might have admired you for such bravery, but mine see it as shameful. I should have stayed behind. I was trained to lead, not to fight." The ambiance around them grew eerily silent, almost as if the nature itself was giving them room for this exchange. He could see the shame swell in her posture, and as much as he wanted to argue, he knew she was right. The culture of leadership could be both isolating and demanding, pushing individuals into roles that didn't always reflect their desires. "I think you underestimated yourself, Syrah. You showed courage in those moments when Zorn ambushed you. You fought back," he said, recalling the brilliant flash of energy emanating from her as she resisted the capture. "No, it was a desperate effort. There's a difference," she sighed, the fight melting away like wisps of the clouds overhead. "Sometimes I wonder what it would be like to be free from the constraints of my status, just to exist without the expectations and the weight of it all." For a moment, Scott found himself understanding the battle she faced, one he had witnessed in his own world through the eyes of others like her. People caught in the crosshairs of power and consequence. "I don't believe you're defined by your title alone," he offered softly. "You fought to survive because it's in your blood, just like it is in mine." But before Syrah could respond, A low rumble echoed through the trees, vibrating the ground beneath them. Leaves trembled, and the air crackled, filled with an ominous sensation. "Retreat! We need to move! Now!" He yanked her toward the dense undergrowth, instincts amplified by the adrenaline coursing through him. They dashed deeper into the alien forest, the vibrancy of the flora morphing into shadows reminiscent of nightmares. The world around them slowly transitioned to an ominous twilight. The trees arched over them like grasping hands, their silhouettes looming in a menacing dance. Every rustle of leaves sent a rush of panic through Scott. Every snap of twigs fostered the echo of footsteps stalking them. "Can we hide here?" Sierra urged, pointing to the gnarled roots of a sprawling ancient tree. They ducked behind its thick trunk just as the shadows of figures processed into the clearing. As day turned to night, the alien landscape around Sierra and Scott transformed into an orchestra of unfamiliar sounds. The hum of unseen creatures vibrating through the dense flora, the distant roar of what could only be described as monstrous beasts echoing from the depths of the jungle, sent shivers down their spines. Eventually, they settled in a small ravine to catch their breath, the towering cliffs surrounding them with an air of both intimidation and protection, albeit one that held the threat of impending danger. Sierra winced as she applied a makeshift bandage over her injury, the fabric torn from her own clothing. Scott sat nearby, carefully crafting a fire from the alien foliage he had gathered, long, luminous strands that curled like tendrils against the darkening sky. It illuminated Sierra's delicate features, giving her an almost ethereal glow, despite the grime and stress etched upon her face. "Your world is so different from my own," Sierra remarked, her voice breaking the silence, a sense of wonder lacing her words. She observed the way Scott moved, the confidence in his hands as he coaxed the fire to life, sparks dancing in the air like distant stars. "Different, yes," Scott replied, his tone laced with a hint of nostalgia as he looked up to the vast expanse above. "But the fear, the fight, we share that. We're not so different." His voice carried a weight of truth that resonated in the cool night air. Sierra nodded, the statement hanging between them like a bridge over troubled waters. They were two beings from vastly different worlds. Yet in that moment of survival, there existed a glimmer of commonality that twinkled like distant stars. However, their fragile peace shattered almost instantaneously. Shadows began to creep upon their makeshift haven, as Creestone, the fierce wind, wailed through the canyon, echoing like a warning. From the heart of the darkness, figures emerged, pirates, mercenaries that had been lurking, waiting. Their grins were sharp, eagerness palpable, as their eyes glistened with the promise of vengeance. Zorn's twisted loyalists had come to collect what they deemed theirs. "Run!" Scott shouted, adrenaline coursing through him as he grabbed Sierra's hand, pulling her along as they sprinted deeper into the ravine, the flickering flames consuming the remnants of their hastily constructed camp. They raced through towering ferns and jagged rocks that jutted from the earth, their hearts pounding with the primal fear of the hunt. It was a chase peppered with their shared breaths, each step intertwining their fates further. Shouts of war echoed behind them, rolling over the terrain like waves crashing upon the shore, reverberating with malice. But amidst their flight, a sudden flash of light illuminated the darkness around them, signaling something extraordinary. A band of Zaprai warriors, their figures ethereal against the shadows, wings unfurling in defiance. "We can help you," one Zaprai yelled, his voice filled with urgency and power, his wings shimmering under the starlight. The sight was mesmerizing. They looked like fighters from an ancient myth, adorned with intricately woven armor that glinted like polished stone. Sierra hesitated, glancing at Scott. "Are they truly our allies, or just another threat?" she questioned, doubt flickering in her voice. The Zaprai were fierce, proud beings of legend, enigmatic, and often mistrustful of outsiders. "Trust is all we have." Scott stepped forward, his palms held up in a gesture of peace. "Together, we stand a chance." His words carried a timbre of determination, an anchor amidst the chaos as he met the Zaprai's unwavering gaze. For a brief moment, tension hung thick, like the humidity of an approaching storm, emotions clashing among the group. The elder Zerai, tall with iridescent skin and vibrant feathers cascading from his shoulders, stepped forward, his expression stern yet contemplative. "You outsiders come uninvited. Why should we risk our lives for you?" "Because their blood stains our land too," another Zerai warrior retorted, her eyes aflame with a fierce loyalty to their home. "They are a den of thieves that would destroy us all." Understanding began to sink in among the warriors, and a spark of cooperation ignited, fueled by desperation. "We have lost many," the elder Zerai finally conceded, the honor within his essence evident. "If we fight together, our enemy will know the true meaning of defeat." As the night deepened, the air thick with anticipation, they formed an alliance, a disparate collection of beings united against a common foe. Scott and Sidtrebra seamlessly became part of this dynamic, contributing ideas and strategies, while the Zasitri provided knowledge of the terrain and their own combat prowess. With Sira's tact and Scott's military experience, hope began to gleam amidst the shadows, a candle flickering in the wind. In the early hours before dawn, around a central fire that crackled with embers, the atmosphere shifted. Warriors shared stories of loss, laughter tinged with sorrow. Unexpected friendships blossomed amidst the looming threat overhead. An unspoken bond began to weave through them, trailing through shared glances and nods of solidarity. Yet as dawn broke, painting the sky in hues of red and orange like the fire ignited in their hearts, their tranquility was short-lived. From the horizon, a dark silhouette emerged, Zorn's ship, cloaked in ominous foreboding. It descended upon them like a predator sensing weakness. "Prepare yourselves!" Scott's voice rang out, reaching each warrior's ears as they readied their weapons, hands steady, spirits ignited. "Attack!" Zorn's furious voice echoed over the hills. Rage-laden fury coursing through him like electricity as he witnessed his prey readying for a fight. The first clash was electrifying, blasters firing into the thick of it, bright beams illuminating the sky in stark contrast to the darkness that surrounded them. Scott and Sierra fought together, their movements synchronized, steel meeting steel as they fended off Zorn's mercenaries. Sierra's agility paired with Scott's brute strength created a formidable duo, their determination a shield against the chaos. Yet, amidst the brunt of battle, Zorn made his move, an unseen weapon poised and ready, aimed at the heart of their collected forces. A chaotic spark erupted, and the subsequent explosion lit the sky. Sierra watched as a shockwave rippled through their ranks, the air thick with tension and the acrid smell of smoke. "Scott!" she screamed, fear gripping her voice as she lost sight of him in the whirlwind of chaos. Hers was a quiet, fierce resolve, and amidst the flashing lights and deafening noise, she focused on the task at hand, directing warriors, issuing commands amidst the din. The battlefield was alive with tension, a palpable atmosphere that seemed to vibrate with the energy of the ongoing conflict, as Zorn's ominous ship hung over the jagged cliffs like a dark omen. Beneath the stars that twinkled indifferently above, Scott and Simnanura found themselves at the helm of a desperate alliance. The makeshift base they had established in the ravine was a stark contrast to the chaos that loomed above, where bright streams of laser fire erupted as pirate ships engaged with the Zerai warriors determined to protect their home. "Time is running short," Scott said, his voice taut with focus as he marked Zorn's movements on the holographic display. Flashes of energy pulsed from the enemy's warships, illuminating the shadows of their allies. "We need a plan that counts." Simbrafe moved beside him, her breath steady despite the persistent throbbing in her arm from the injury she had sustained earlier. "We have to disrupt their formation. If we can get close enough, I can use the weaponry we salvaged from the crash. The Zerai have technology that can manipulate energy pulses. It could disable Zorn's ship." As the words slipped from her lips, a collective murmur rose among the gathered Zerai warriors, a blend of fear and admiration. Their elder, a tall being with iridescent scales that reflected the dim light, stepped forward. "Such bravery is admirable," he spoke, his voice resonant and firm. "But this is a dangerous gambit. Can we trust the intentions of these outsiders?" Sarah locked her gaze on the elder, determination burning in her eyes. You must trust me. We face not just a pirate, we face a tyrant who threatens us all. It's time to put aside our differences for a greater cause." Scott watched as the warriors considered Syrah's words. He could see their hesitation, rooted in their past, one of betrayal and fear. Yet he also sensed a flicker of hope igniting among them. "We all have something to fight for," Scott added, his voice rising above the anxiety of the gathering. "For your families, your homes, and a future free from Zorn's wrath. With unity we can achieve what seems impossible." Just then, a sudden explosion echoed through the night air, sending tremors through the ground as a projectile struck a nearby cliff. As debris rained down, the urgency of their plight became painfully clear. The moment of hesitation was over. A rallying cry erupted from the Zerai warriors as they formed ranks, their ethereal wings stretching wide, fluttering with anticipation for the impending battle. Through the chaos, Syrah felt a surge of adrenaline course through her veins. It was the ember of unity, fragile yet formidable. "Gather the ion disruptors," Syrah commanded, instilling confidence in their ranks as she moved to the center. Her voice cut through the cacophony. "We will not falter. The time for action is now." Scott followed her lead, the adrenaline transforming into a purposeful energy that quelled the unrest among their coalition. The ground shook as they advanced, a powerful formation of Zerai warriors flanking him, their wings catching the faint light of distant stars. In a surreal moment, he was reminded of the beauty that still existed amidst chaos. It was inspiring, invigorating, and terrifying. The scene shifted abruptly as Zorn's ship unleashed a barrage of missiles toward the ravine. Scott shouted, "Brace yourselves!" and instinctively lunged toward Syrah, pulling her from harm's way just as an explosion lit up the night sky. The force knocked them both to the ground, and for a moment, all was silence. Dazed but determined, they rose to their feet again. Scott looked around to see the Zatrai regrouping, a glimmer of courage in their eyes. "We need to make them pay," he shouted, urgency driving his words as fury surged within him for the losses that had accumulated through the years. With a fierce battle cry, Syrah led the charge. As she waved her hand, the Zerai activated their advanced technology, sending blasts of energy pulsing into the sky. The display lit up the dark expanse, with spectacles of electric colors, brilliant purples and blues swirling through the air, a visual representation of their unified front. Above them, Zorn's ship began to falter, its engines sputtering as the ion disruptors successfully impacted its systems. "Now!" Scott yelled as the crew began their assault, a flood of lasers lighting up the air as their hearts beat in sync with every pulse of light. Zorn's voice crackled over the ship's comms, dripping with disdain. "You think you can overthrow me? You are but insects, clinging to a fleeting existence." His laughter echoed menacingly as if mocking their determination. As the pirates began to retaliate, chaos erupted. Lasers arced through the air, illuminating the battlefield in a surreal dance of death and defiance. Scott felt a surge of energy, the gravity of their cause fueling his bravery as he maneuvered through the fray. Syrah fought by his side, utilizing her inherited skills from the Boran military. Each movement fluid and precise. Cries of conflict encircled them. Scott ducked beneath a laser gun blast, feeling the heat singe the air above his head. Adrenaline coursed through him as he retaliated with precision fire. The destruction around them ebbed and flowed, the shadows growing as waves of cargo ships began pirating through the battlefield, led by Zorn's vengeful mercenaries. In the midst of the clutter, Syrah caught sight of an enormous weapon mounting on Zorn's ship, shining an ominous crimson. She gasped, realization dawning upon her. "Scott! The main cannon! If it fires, the entire valley will be obliterated." "Then we need to take it out," he exclaimed, glancing toward the approaching mercenaries, a fire igniting within him that burned hotter than the chaos around. He motioned for Syrah, their eyes locking in shared purpose. The two were an unbroken unit, surged by a collective will to vanquish the darkness threatening their worlds. They mobilized, sprinting towards the edge of the battle, where the cannon was steadily charging, a harbinger of doom. As they neared, screams erupted around them, the frightening sounds becoming a symphony of war. Suddenly, an explosion rocked the ground, launching Scott off his feet. He glanced up, stunned, seeing Sipra against a tableau of flames, her features illuminated by the burst of light. She cried out but remained determined, charging toward Zorn's weapon, blaster in hand. Scott fought through the confusion, forcing himself to rise and push forward. "Sierra!" he yelled desperately, reaching out for her amidst the fluttering chaos. Her determination was fierce, her spirit undiminished, despite the swirling shadows of danger ensnaring them. Days passed after the tumultuous battle against Zorn and his forces. The air on the planet was thick, with the scent of charred metal and burnt foliage, remnants of their fierce struggle for survival. Sierra and Scott, now battle-worn yet triumphantly alive, surveyed the field of debris that had once belonged to their adversaries. Victory, though sweet, had a bitter undertone. It brought the realization that their journey was far from over. A new chapter awaited them. Beneath the expansive canopy of an alien sky, Sierra crouched atop a ridge, her eyes scanning the horizon for any signs of further threats. "Do you think we'll have peace?" Sierra asked softly, her gaze distant. The golden rays of the sun broke through the clouds with tentative strokes, lighting her face with a bittersweet glow, illuminating the warrior spirit that had emerged within her. "I don't know," Scott admitted, his voice solemn but laced with determination. "But we can't stop fighting for it. Zorn was just one piece of a larger puzzle. We need to prepare ourselves for whatever comes next." He stood beside her, the weight of his resolve palpable. They had fought bravely together, but standing here now, they understood the gravity of their task ahead. Casting her eyes over the makeshift camp the Zorai had built, Sarah was struck by the sight of the wounded being tended to, of families drawing strength from one another. They had forged a bond deeper than the bloodshed they had witnessed. The Zorai, once defensive and skeptical of their alliance, had begun to accept them, recognizing the strength that came from unity. "We won their trust in battle," Sierra noted, contemplating the shimmering horizon. "But trust is a fragile thing. It needs to be nurtured." Scott nodded, appreciating her insight. "You have a way with words, Sierra. You inspired them when it mattered most. They see you as a leader now." Sierra pulled back, a cautious frown emphasizing her features. "Leadership isn't just about motivation, it's about responsibility, and our enemies have not disappeared. I fear what may come." Scott placed a reassuring hand on her shoulder. "Together we will find a way. They need us both. Show them that peace is worth fighting for." His warmth contrasted the chill that coursed through her veins. Determined to engage their new allies, Scott summoned the Council of Zorai Elders. A gathering was arranged in the center of their camp, a circular space marked by stones etched with Zaran glyphs, glowing softly with an otherworldly light. As Sidiquara entered the meeting, she felt the weight of their expectations press heavily against her chest. The elders, with their iridescent wings folded gracefully against their backs, looked to her with anticipation. "Sira of Boran, you have proven your strength in battle," began the eldest Zorai, his voice deep and resonant. "But can you guide us in a time of peace?" Sira took a breath, centering her thoughts. "We cannot ignore the threat Zorn posed," she began. "He was part of a larger syndicate, one that will not forgive our resistance easily. However, together we have strength. Together we can forge alliances that extend far beyond this world." Wanta. The elders of Zorai exchanged glances, their translucent skin shimmering with the changes in their emotions. "And what would you propose?" one elder queried, voice laced with skepticism. "Diplomacy," Scott interjected, leaning forward, his energy palpable. "We should reach out to those in the galaxy who oppose the pirate scum. This fight touches everyone who desires a semblance of order, a chance to live without fear." Want. A murmur of intrigue rippled through the assembly as Sira continued. "If we can unite the fractured factions across the Celestian cluster, we will not only stand against this syndicate, but we will create a lasting coalition built on mutual respect and shared values." "But how will you gain the support of those beyond our planet? They know nothing of you," another elder protested, crossing her arms, displaying a reticence that mirrored Sira's early doubts. Scott smiled, stepping into the conversation like a conductor bringing forth harmony. "Because we've already proven ourselves. They will remember our triumph against Zorn. They want allies that have faced adversity. We carry their stories, those who fought beside us, those who believe in our cause." A silence enveloped the group as Sira pondered their thoughts and fears. She could feel the tension shift. A palpable energy of hope and trepidation clung to the air. "Then let's show them," she urged, desperation creeping into her voice. "We will gather our allies. We will be the light that drives the darkness away from this galaxy." The council debated long into the night, sharing concerns and elaborating on strategies. Sira witnessed Scott as he navigated the discussions effortlessly. His humor lightened the weighty exchanges. He was equal parts soldier and diplomat, bringing together disparate opinions. By dawn's first light, the uncertainty had morphed into a plan. With renewed purpose, the camp was abuzz with activity. The Zarai warriors flitted about, weaving their own resources into makeshift communications devices. Sira collaborated closely with them, learning their language, absorbing their customs, deepening her integration into this foreign society. During a particularly spirited moment, she shared stories of her home, her laughter mingling with the Zarai, allowing camaraderie to blossom. Days turned into weeks as they crafted a beacon of hope, an intergalactic signal to bring their scattered allies to their side. The makeshift communications booth crackled to life, sending out pulses of energy toward neighboring systems. "If you seek an end to tyranny, join us. We are the dawn of a new alliance." As the reality of their undertaking dawned on them, Sira paused one night, gazing at the vast cosmos laid out before her. The stars twinkled like distant dreams, beckoning her toward their shimmering depths. "Will we prevail?" she pondered aloud, distracted by the gravity of their undertaking. Scott joined her in contemplation, his eyes reflecting those same stars. "We have to believe we will," he replied. "Every alliance starts with a single belief, a flicker of hope amidst darkness." They spent those nights working side by side, their bond deepening under the vast celestial tapestry. As Scott shared tales of his world of culture, customs, and remembrance, a relationship burgeoned that bridged their differences. One evening, a flickering signal caught their attention. Zarai scouts had detected a vessel approaching, one adorned with the insignia of the Avaliel traders, known for their resourcefulness. Excitement thrummed through Sira's veins, yet uncertainty clouded her thoughts. "Will they embrace us or turn away?" she asked, watching the other Zarai gather in anticipation. "They'll want to know what's in it for them," Scott grinned, no hint of doubt marring his expression. "But if we're united, they'll see the value." The Avanel traders docked with their eclectic ship, a curious amalgamation of technology and nature woven together. They emerged, cautious, their eyes sizing up the hastily assembled coalition. Among them stood a leader, tall and adorned with vibrant feathers that glinted in the light. "What brings you to us, warriors of Zeraboran?" the leader inquired, curiosity dancing in their tone. "Our victory against Zorn is just the beginning," Sira stepped forward, her voice steady. "But we cannot create lasting peace alone. We seek allies willing to stand against tyranny." The Avanil leader exchanged a glance with their crew, recognition igniting a spark among them. "We've faced our own battles," they shared. "Your courage has drawn us here, but promise us this. We will not only act in protection of each other, but we will also forge a path of trade and support across the stars." As the sun began to set, casting hues of orange and violet across the sky, a pact was formed. A tentative alliance blossomed amidst skepticism, yet it shimmered with promise. They were not singular factions, but a new collective, determined to fight against a looming darkness. With each new ship that arrived, a tapestry of allies forming around them, Sira's confidence grew. Hope burgeoned, and she grappled with the burgeoning realization that she had not only become a leader, but the voice for the future of many. "Look how far we've come," Scott whispered one evening as they witnessed an array of ships lining the hangar bay. "Yes," Sira mused, leaning into him, "but this is merely a prologue to our journey. The real test lies ahead." Quote, as they turned back toward the camp, the stars twinkled with an added vigor, subtly promising adventures and trials yet to unfold. Sira took in the sight before her soldiers, traders, and families, intertwined with shared purpose, kindling the torch of hope that began to cast out shadows. With this renewed alliance formed, Scott and Sarah vowed to continue forging ties and building strength among the factions of the galaxy. They stood at the precipice of change, ready to advocate for those who had suffered in silence. In that moment, Sarah reflected on the power of unity and resilience. "We may be but small candles against the cosmos," she quipped softly, "but together we can ignite a fire that will illuminate the darkest corners of the universe." And as they advanced into their future, filled with alliances and challenges, that flickering torch of hope was all they needed to light the way. Thus, with newfound strength, they readied themselves for the battles to come, knowing that they would face them together. Because in a galaxy fraught with uncertainty, the most enduring weapon was hope, sparked by dreamers like them, willing to stand against despair. Indeed, the dawn of new alliances had arrived, and their journey had only just begun. The void of space stretched ahead, brimming with endless possibilities and the promise of a brighter tomorrow. If you liked this story based on real events, subscribe to our channel and don't forget to like it. Here you can dive into a different reality every day, where anything can happen. Comment below what kind of story you would like to hear here. Thank you very much for your attention. We are the Sci-Fi family.